¿A quién le dices hola, hija? ¿A quién le dices hola?
Hola, niña.
¡Ay, la niña, hijo de puta madre!
If you came here to kill me, clap your hands. Well, that wasn't clapping your hands. That was more like just... Okay, I'm sorry.
Over the weekend, one of my very good friends, Melissa, sent me a photo of something her dad caught on his security camera outside his house. And when I tell you, my jaw dropped when she texted me this, because I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I'm about to show you it. And I'll let you reflect on it for a second. Because, like, this is one of the most terrifying things somebody I know has caught on camera. Here it is. Take a second, and when you see it, you're gonna freak out, because I did. And it was like 8 in the morning. If you still can't see it, I went ahead and took the liberty of circling it for you. What is that? What is that? As you can see, this was taken like at 11 o'clock at night. It wasn't even that late. It wasn't like a, oh, found this at 3 a.m. on my security camera. Like, yeah, it's late, but still. He said when he got the notification said human motion detected, because cameras, some of them can detect if it's like an animal or if it's a human, and his said human motion detected. When he went and saw what it found on the camera, that's what he saw.
So this is the role that I played in experiencing a soul go to hell. I'm gonna try to keep this story in one video, but this was high school years. This was around 2016, 2017. And my best friend at the time, she had this boyfriend, right? And we'll call him Eddie. So, her and Eddie had their own thing going on. I was kind of out of their business, for real. Until it started to get bad. He became a very, very toxic, overbearing boyfriend. He knew that we got out of school at like 3:15, so he would call her every day at 3:15 to make sure she was at her locker to get her shit to leave, like one of those kind of guys. He would blow her phone up hundreds of times a day while she's in school, while she's at work, while she's at home, while she's at practice, because he felt like she needed to answer the phone when he called her. And then when it came to friends, in our friend group, it was 3 girls and it was about 8 boys in this friend group. Majority of us went to school together. But these guys are really like our brothers. Like, we grew up with them a little bit for a few years. And once they noticed that he was basically harassing her, one of our friends decided to start picking up the phone. Well, actually, multiple of them. They're like, I'm picking up the phone. I'm going to answer because he's not going to keep harassing you, right? He would text her crazy things. He would call her crazy bitches, like all types of crazy stuff out his mouth. And my homeboys was like trying to stop it. They would answer the phone and they'd be, you know, playing games in this nigga face, basically, you know. And she didn't care after a certain point because she's like, fuck it. Like, this man is going to keep harassing me, right? So fast forward, he's still stalking her, right? I'm going to jump over a whole bunch of little altercations that they had. But in the end, he ended up passing away. And Eddie passed away because of a cancer, I believe. And she felt some type of way because he never told her that he was sick. And then she felt bad because she was like, maybe that's why he was being so fucking clingy with me, is because he knew that he was ill, but he didn't want to tell me that he was ill. But it was like she wasn't being a dismissive girlfriend. Like, she's a Leo. She's on that shit. But he really was just acting crazy. He ended up passing away from this illness, and it was bad. When he passed away, he called me, you know, she cried about it, everything like that. And then one day I was sitting on FaceTime with her, and, you know, she had her phone set up. She was doing her makeup and shit at her vanity. And I see this shadow of a head right here. So I'm like, there's At first I didn't say anything. At first I kept just looking at the camera, like, and she was like, bitch, why do you keep, like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, there's somebody standing behind you. It's a spirit standing behind you. She was straight like, oh, fuck no. No, I don't mess with demons. Da, da, da. Like, she's one of them. Like, as soon as you mention it, bitch, get out. Get out now. And I started to realize that it was getting a little agitated and that it kept, like, peeking around from behind her head and everything. And he kept trying to knock shit out her hand. And it was like, I started to pick it up more while I was sitting on FaceTime with her, and I could see his face, and I'm like, oh, the shape of it, like, that's the exact shape of his fucking head, like, and I'm like, yeah, I didn't tell her, I'm like, yeah, that's Eddie, that's, I could tell, like, he's trying to knock shit out her hand and get her attention, and he's mad that he can't get her attention, right? Because I started getting a vision of, like, every time she would come into her room or she would grab stuff, he would be standing there in her room yelling at her, trying to get her attention, and she didn't see him. And he thought that she was just ignoring him. He didn't know he was dead either. He thought that she was just ignoring him. He even went as far as to try to grab her leg and pull her off the bed. But there's another medium who my best friend's godmother just so happens to be a medium, and she also told me that I'm a natural born medium and that I have more gifts than she had at my age. And at the time that we had met, she was in her later 40s and I was 20 years old. So once I told my best friend what Eddie was doing in her house, she went and she talked to her godmother about it. Now, her godmother is a Christian medium. She's a prayer warrior, but she sees spirits. She sees spirits, she talks to spirits, she helps spirits, she does a lot of things in that area. Her areas are kind of different from mine, but she operates out of the Bible with what she's coming from. But we basically had to pull him out of the house and put him in her godmother's house, so he wouldn't try to keep haunting her, because it was starting to become oppressive, like the situation that I spoke about previously with one of my friends who passed away. Once we got him out of the house and we trapped him in her godmother's house, me and her godmother had to keep in contact with each other so we could make sure from both sides of the fence that this was being handled. I was getting a lot more intuitive downloads than she was. She was just able to see the spirits. She wasn't able to understand things about them. I get a lot of intuition when it comes to spirits, and I get downloads, and I get images and visions in my mind, and I get sounds, and I get noises, and I get smells, and I get all types of different impressions that basically make me kind of draw out a picture or a sentence to tell you what's going on. So she would have to ask me, like, where in the house does she go, and what does she have to do, and stuff like that. And then when she would see it, she would see it. So he's now in her house. He's now in her room. She has her daughter staying with her, grandbabies, his dogs in there, everything. So she locked him in her room. She told me she put up a protection to make sure that he cannot leave her room. But then he started to torment her. So she kept contacting me about it. He would keep her up all night, pacing in her room, and she would call me. He would sit up in her room crying in the corner, and she would call me because it would wake her up from her sleep, and then she would have to sit with him all night. And the more that she told him that he couldn't leave, the angrier that he got. And this was only about like a week's worth of shit happening. So we cut off his portal. He could not leave that room at all. He started to get increasingly angry because he kept trying to go to my best friend and he couldn't. So in turn, Eddie started trying to destroy her godmother's room, trying to throw stuff around the room and everything like that. We would be sitting and talking about this shit all the time. And I did some protection and prayer for him and with him, and he did not want to hear that shit. He did not want to hear. He didn't give a fuck what I was talking about. He was honestly very rude and very disrespectful to me when I tried to help him figure out where he was and what he was doing. It was definitely given, I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. And I felt really bad because I'm like, sir, like, I'm trying to help you, right? He was just worried about my best friend. So my best friend's godmother calls me one night and she's boo-hoo crying on the phone, right? And I'm like, what's going on? She told me that she had prayed for Eddie and that she talked to him and that he still wasn't trying to understand that he was gone, that he had passed on. He wasn't trying to hear that. He thought that he was still here. He just couldn't understand how he was moving around, but he thought that she was just a random woman that locked him in her house. Like, he thought he was still alive. And she was really trying to get him to understand that he's gone and that he has to move on. And he was getting angrier every time she tried to tell him this because he didn't understand it. And ultimately, on the 7th day, when she called me and she was boo-hoo crying, she said, She said, I couldn't help him. I couldn't help him. And I was like, what are you talking about? What happened? And she said, they took him. I said, who took him? The angels took him? She said, no. And she started crying so fucking hard. She said, I tried to help him. I tried to tell him. I tried to get him to understand, but he's just so angry he didn't want to understand. And I watched the demons come and drag him to hell. And there was nothing I could do about it.